All right, we're going to continue on with scripting and being able to add geometry to our PartNester imported files. And so far we've created the perimeter, outline cuts, shapes, a dado, and some shelf pinholes. In this video, we're going to cover how to add a couple dados to the top, similar to what we have sketched out in this drawing. So I'm going to use, for a base cabinet, we just need two stretchers on top. We don't need a full dado going across the width. So to create this, we're going to need two rectangles drawn, and each of the rectangles is really going to need 5 points. Even though I have the fourth here, the fifth point is being the same as the first to give it a closed shape. So once we know what our shape looks like, we need to know what our part Y is. The Y is the depth or the height of this part. In this case, it's the depth of the cabinet side. So we're going to come back over into our Notepad++, and we've been working with the basesides.vbs file. We have the subroutine for the dado bottoms, and we're going to use this as our starting point. So I'm going to select everything that I know we need to be the same, and also the first segment of the bottom dado. I'm going to do a Control-C to copy that and add it here, and remembering to add the end sub. If we do not have that at the bottom, it is going to yell at us when we try to compile or when we try to run this script. So with this complete, we have the part X, which we really don't need in this case because part X is not going to be used at all, and we are going to start this at 0, but it's really not going to be 0. I want it to be a minus the extend point. So I'm just going to do minus that extend, and the same thing for the Y. So again, looking at that image, 0, 0 is going to be this corner right here, and I need to have that, or want to have that rectangle drawn off the outside of that point to allow room for the cutter to get out and clearly give us a nice clean cut. So the first point of the dado here is going to be minus 0.175, minus 0.175. So coming back over into our script, that's where we have there. So to continue on with the different points, just going to copy what makes up each point. And again, just changing the segment. So next week or a month or a year from now, I could come back in here and maybe make some sense of what is going to happen. So now for the dado width is only going to be in the X direction. So that gives us the 3/4 in the X direction. And again, copy, paste for our third point. The X is going to be the same as the previous. The Y is going to be the width of the dado. And we already have a dado width here, which is 3/4. Maybe we want to call that a different variable. And we'll call it STR depth, and this is for stretcher depth. Again, variables could be made up words as long as you could understand what they are going to be meaning later on when you go to look at this a few months from now. So with that being equal to 6 inches, we're going to give the Y the value of the variable that we just declared. So coming back in, changing the 0.4, the fourth point in this segment, and the X is going to get brought back into that negative 3/8, which is that extend. And then for the last point, or the closing point, is the same as the first. Going to give that a 5th. And I could even put a note there that says this is closing the shape. And we're bringing that back down to our 0, 0. And we need our final item here, which is make that polyline. And we will save. So hopefully, again, we got everything typed and entered in correctly. So when I re-nest this, we should have our dado drawn out at that lower left. And it is not there. And the reason it is not there is just because we created this extra subroutine, which we've made it the same as the previous one. We really need to call this the top dado or dado tops. And we want to make a call or make sure that we get this routine to run. Going to come back up to the top for the base side and enter that in here now so that it was going to get sent down as it goes through here. When it gets to this point, it is going to return down to that subroutine to create everything that's here. And if I haven't really mentioned this, or if you've not understood by now, a subroutine is nothing more by putting this dado top here is really the same as just copying all the data and text that's within this and pasting it right here. But by running a subroutine, it helps keep the code a little bit cleaner, a little bit more well organized, rather than having all of the code all the way through in one subroutine. So now with that created, we're going to go ahead and hit save, come back over into our nesting, tools, and then nest. And that is what I was expecting to have. We want to be able to do the same thing and create the same dado across the top. I'm going to leave this and still continue to use the same subroutine dado top. And what I need to grab, and I'm going to just make a copy of everything that makes that bottom dado, and just put a note. I'm going to say that's going to be for the dado for the front, so when I look back at this code later on, I'm going to understand what it is. And I'm going to put for top so that it's not a back dado, it's the back side dado for the stretcher. And now we're just going to go in, modify what we have here. So really about the same thing as we had earlier, other than we are going to use this part y variable. I'm going to enter in the part y, and I'm going to subtract the stretcher depth, which is that 6 inches. And again, we're following the data structure or the logic that we have drawn out here. So that first point is starting the part width minus that 6 inches in the y, and then the x is also minus. So the next point is going to be exactly the same as the previous. Only the x is going to be equal to the dado width then the next one, point number 3, is across the top, so it is going to be in the y. We're going to add the extend, and the Y and the X is still over. Then the fourth point is the Y is going to stay the same, and the X is going to come back into a minus 3/16, which that extend variable is equal to. Then the last point, again, is going to be the same as the first to be able to close that shape. And hopefully I didn't get myself lost and confused in what was happening here. But again, we could just follow through. The X is starting at minus 3/16. The Y is coming down plus the stretcher, so that's 6 inches. And you could just kind of plot this out the same way we have it plotted out, or the same way that I have it plotted out on the graph paper. So we can now come into the nesting, and if I have everything correct, when we go to Tools Nest, I should have a dado across the top, closing that shape. I definitely missed something, and now it is time to start debugging and figuring out what was missed. Well, I did pause the video to figure out what was missed, and it was a very simple, easy mistake that happened is after making those changes, I did not click save. So now that I saved those changes to add that rectangle for the dado, when we nested that dado has now been placed exactly where I expected it to be. The next video is going to be hopefully an easier video, a little quicker, and we will add a dado across the back side of the cabinet for a 1/4 inch back.